Marian Joan Hurley was a 44-year-old from Granbury, Texas. She was the mother of 2 daughters and had a fiery personality. On September 18, 1999, Marian and her husband had just come back from a camping trip. They stopped at the golf course they owned. Marian then got in someone's car and left. She was never seen again. I'm Ed Densel, and this is Unfound. Has there ever been a more damning phrase in the English language than, "Yep, that's about what I expected"? In those 6 words, the speaker conveys so many unsaid feelings. First and foremost, in a negative way, the speaker shows he or she feels almost too knowledgeable about the topic. Second, in having that knowledge, the speaker wishes he or she could just be surprised once. Just once. Really, nobody ever says after winning Mega Millions, "Yep, that's about what I expected." And third, there's the belief that the speaker's hopes have been dashed. He or she wanted something new, something interesting. But nope, more of the same old, i.e., I was so much hoping for steak tonight. But it's Tuesday, and that means meatloaf. I mean, seriously, how boring would our lives be if the only things that happened to us were what we expected? Nobody wants to live Groundhog Day, although it was a great movie. Well, in The Disappearance of Marian Hurley, it appears we're getting exactly what we expect. A husband who claims his wife got in a car with someone and drove off. And he has no idea who the driver was or where Marian went. So, using my pun abilities to the greatest extent, given where the husband said he last saw Marian, I'm calling this episode Par for the Course. And now a summary of the case. This is brought to you by my friend Megan Good's website, charleyproject.org. Marian Hurley from the outside seemed to have it pretty good. She ran a par 3 golf course owned by herself and her husband, Will, just at the right time as Tiger Woods came on the scene, giving American audiences someone new to cheer and emulate. In addition, Will himself worked at a nuclear power facility, so they were living well. In addition, they had 2 daughters. Yep, everything was great. Then it wasn't. During the summer of 1999, Marian discovered Will was having an affair with a coworker, a liaison that Marian ordered him to stop. Which he did. Maybe. However, the turmoil caused Marian to start drinking even more than she usually did, exacerbating her already hot temper. This then caused Marian to make comments to the golf customers about how she planned to kill her husband. So on September 17th, 1999, seemingly without telling anyone beforehand, Marian, Will, and their 2 children went on a camping trip to the park at De Cordova Dam, about 13 miles away. Allegedly the next day, they returned but did not go straight home. Instead, they stopped at their golf course. After just a few minutes there, a car pulled up. Will claimed Marian got into it. She didn't say where she was going, and Will didn't know who the driver was. Marian and this person then left the premises. She was never seen again. Will did not file a police report. Instead, due to the actions of a curious customer at the golf course, an investigation started, with several people, including the Hurley's neighbors, becoming involved. Will and his daughters left Granbury not long after Marian went missing, and he still insists he had nothing to do with Marian's disappearance. Here at Unfound, we've heard these kinds of stories before. Husband says wife got in a car with an unknown person and took off. We seldom believe these explanations, of course, but not believing them is not enough. We must figure out how to prove they are lies so these kinds of disappearances never happen again. So for Marian's, I want you to concentrate on these three main questions. Number one, if Will caused Marian's disappearance, are we to believe he disposed of her in the park where they went that night? Number two, is it a coincidence that Will was doing groundwork and landscaping at the golf course at the time of Marian's disappearance? And number three, could investigators have been within feet of solving Marian's disappearance in 1999, but stopped when they dug up a dog? Marian's family and friends 100% believe Will is responsible for her disappearance. The guests for this episode are Marian's friends and next-door neighbors from 1999, Sherry Barron and her daughter Kelly McCampbell. Unfound News. Yep, that time is already here again. Next Thursday, I will be having another interview with Dr. Grace Telesco from Nova Southeastern University. The date will be November 19th, the time 7 p.m. Eastern, the YouTube channel, the Fischler College of Education and School of Criminal Justice. We will be discussing the disappearance of Robin Abrams. Next, I want to point out a very new and very helpful page on the website, theunfoundpodcast.com. Look for the section under the Unfound on the Ground page. It's called Data Gems. There you will find a long list of links we use to make the Unfound podcast happen. Everything from articles on citizen journalism to databases we use to find people. Please check it out. I'm sure the page will be helpful once you start to do your own investigating. Finally, bad news for all the suspects in the disappearances we've covered on Unfound. I went to the doctor this past Monday. I got a clean bill of health. So sorry. Where you can find Unfound. Unfound supports accounts on Podomatic, iTunes, Stitcher, Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, Deezer, Facebook, and YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, please join us on our podcast channel for the Unfound Live Show. All of you can talk with me, and I can answer your questions. Contribute to Unfound at patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. You can also contribute at PayPal, paypal.me/Unfound Podcast. And do not forget the website, theunfoundpodcast.com. A note before this interview starts. We don't have too many neighbors as guests on Unfound. However, due to their extensive knowledge on Marian's disappearance, the two women in the following interview appeared at the request of Marian's family. I'm so happy to have on this episode of Unfound the former neighbors of Marian Hurley, Sherry Barron, and her daughter, Kelly McCampbell. Sherry and Kelly, welcome to Unfound.
Thank you. Thank
Great.
you for taking the time to do this.
Well, you're very welcome. That's what we do. That's what we do at Unfound, and we're happy to cover another case in Texas. We've covered quite a few over the last 4 years. Let's start here. You were both neighbors of Marian going back to 1999. What was it like living next to her? How long did you two live next to her? Of course, before she disappeared in 1999, did you live there first and they moved in? How did that all happen? Maybe we'll start with Sherry.
Yes, sir. We moved in 1993, and then Marian and Will came in after we had lived there several years. and we met them as next door neighbors. We enjoyed their company because they were about the same age as my husband at the time, and myself, and both of the men enjoyed playing golf together.
Huh. So your husband and Will, Marian's husband, played golf together.
That is correct, yes.
Wow.
De Cordova Bend is a golf estate, so our houses are built around a golf course, and when you move in here, you can become members of that golf country club, and that's what we did, so the guys got to play golf at a discounted rate. So they played a lot of golf.
Wow, okay. Well, how would you typify the Hurleys as neighbors? Maybe we'll just go through the general things. Did they keep the grass cut? Things like that. Were they good neighbors?
Yes, they were good neighbors, and yes, they kept their grass cut. House was always clean. Just standard, everyday people. They seemed perfectly happy and at the time, and they enjoyed socializing with the people out there, and we, kind of hung in the neighborhood because out there you become really close to the neighbors around you because there's so many activities at the club. They had a pool where the children could swim, so your kids interacted with neighborhood kids, and so there was just a lot of closeness out there. So yes, they pretty much kept up just like the rest of us.
Okay.
They enjoyed it.
And so when we say neighbors, we're not talking like out in the country where the next door neighbor's like a quarter mile away. Their house was relatively close to yours?
Oh, very close, yes.
Very close. Okay.
Yes.
And Kelly, please. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, in our houses, we were fortunate enough to back up to a creek. So we had a big, nice backyard that looked like a park, and then a creek flowed through it, separating the people behind us. So we really and truly didn't have any real next-door neighbors behind us. You could sit out on your decks or patios and just enjoy the scene of the creek. Looked like a park.
Nice.
And we swam in the creek. We swam in the creek spot with the girls.
Now, Kelly, of course, this was 21 years ago, and you are Sherry's daughter, so I understand you were young at the time. We would never get into women's ages on the program. But, of course, the Hurleys had 2 daughters. Were you a little bit older than they were? Are you?
I was 3 years older than Tara, the oldest daughter. Because Tara is the same age as my sister.
Okay.
My younger sister. But they also, Katie was a baby, so of course I was 9 and really into baby dolls and babies, and so we played with them almost, if not every day. We were with them all the time.
Okay.
If we weren't at the house, we were at the golf course. If we weren't at the golf course, we were at daycare together.
Wow.
We went to daycare together.
Okay, so you got to know Will and Marian's daughters fairly well as little girls.
Yes, as little girls.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, let's move on to this. Let's now talk about Marian specifically. Sherry, how would you explain Marian, her personality? How did you get along with her, woman to woman, etc.?
In the beginning, I guess before she had her second baby, excuse me, and really afterwards, for maybe a year or 2, she was typical mom. Will had built a golf course himself, the par 3, and it was called Three Oaks Golf Course. And so she helped him run that golf course. But she basically was like a stay-at-home mom. As time grew on and as the years started to pass by, her drinking habits changed. And I think it had more to do with Will traveling so much and her being responsible for the home, the golf course, the children. And I think that it just started all piling up on her, and her escape was through drinking. She wasn't an excessive hard liquor drinking, but she definitely was an excessive beer drinker. So she would put the kids in daycare, go to the golf course, her little par 3 golf course, which is not, let me explain, is not a part of the Cordova golf course. 2 separate golf courses.
Okay.
And so she would go up to their golf course, and if nobody was there, if it wasn't busy, well, she just got bored and would sit and drink.
Did you, were you, Sherry, I should ask, were you close enough to her that you ever thought about or maybe did say something to her about her drinking?
Yes. Yes, I did. But it kind of went in one ear and out the other. We were close friends. I saw her every day. If I was mowing, then she would come out in her yard. You know, I mean, it was just, we were just. I don't know. Maybe she was just starved for adult conversation. Because, like I said, Will was never really around after about the first 2 or 3 years after they moved into De Cordova. He would come in on the weekends and, of course, play golf, stay gone all day, go to his golf course, and she would stay at home with the girls. And so they never were together probably after Katie was born. They were together, but they did not do activities together.
Okay. And Kelly, do you remember once again, is your age at the time, do you ever remember seeing Marian maybe a little bit drunk or things like that, and how you reacted to it as a little girl? Do you ever remember that?
Yes. I don't remember. I just remember every picture that we have. She has a beer in front of her.
Wow.
I remember her, but I feel like my dad was an alcoholic as well, so that I guess it was just kind of normal for me. But now that I'm an adult, of course, that wasn't normal or okay. Because I do remember her being very drunk sometimes. When this is Sherry, and when they would come over, our socializing was sitting on the back deck, drinking beer, and the kids playing. And the kids playing in the yard. We had a gated yard, and we had a playground and trampoline, so we would play. And my parents and Marian and Will would sit on the porch and drink and live. I don't know. Yes, that's very true. Yes.
Okay. And being the
I don't ever remember it being anybody else. I remember it just always being us.
So, Sherry, let me ask you this. Being that your husband and Will used to golf, did it ever come up between you and your husband? Man, Will, being out of town and Mary being at home, did you talk to him about their relationship and how Marian seemed to be going a little bit downhill?
My husband and I divorced in 1996, so he wasn't around during this period of time. But we did talk about it when it started getting bad, and the concern that I had with the kids being subjected to her attitude. She wasn't a very nice drunk person. Okay. So, I mean, she got very outspoken, very loud. It wasn't her. If your opinion wasn't what she thought, she would pretty much tell you what she thought, but maybe not in such a kind way that the children should have been around. Not to say that she was a heavy, like a sailor person, but when she drank, she was a whole different person. But so was Will. Will and her, when they drank together, they would get mad at each other. They would become verbally abusive to each other, and leave our home and go to their home. And then the next morning, there would be a conversation that I would have with Marian of where, well, we have broke so many glasses, or there was a lot of stuff that I really don't know about.
Okay.
But from what Marian said, was not a very good living environment.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, let's move on let's just talk a little bit more about Will. You've already stated that your husband, I guess, before you two got divorced. Maybe I should ask you this: did they continue to golf together after you two got divorced? Do you know?
No, not really as much. No.
Okay. So let's just talk about Will in general. You said that the way you remembered, he was out of town a lot. I guess he worked for some sort of nuclear facility, something like an engineer or something?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So he's out of town. So what, maybe you two can remember what were kind of your interactions with him just one-on-one, once again, after you get divorced, your husband, I guess, moved out. Just your interactions with Will, just one-on-one, what were they like?
It would be me. Will was really nice, and like I said, it just seems to me like he started traveling a whole lot, and that was after my husband divorced, so 99% of the time it was just me and Marian. But Will was very nice. He was just your regular dad. He did travel a lot with his job because he was contract, and he took care of the girls. He changed diapers. I mean, he did his fatherly responsibility. He kept the yard when he was there. He worked his golf course while he was there. Of course, that was from 6 o'clock in the morning until midnight at night at the golf course, whether they were playing golf or not,
Yeah.
But actually, when the girl's dad and I divorced, he pretty much just stayed to himself. He didn't really socialize with me, because I was alone.
Okay.
So it was just me and Marian.
Okay. So, Kelly, I'm guessing then that being that this divorce happened in 1996, I'm guessing, Kelly, you, even though, of course, you're a young girl at the time, you didn't have a lot of interaction with Will? Did you see him?
No, I don't really remember him being around a lot after my dad and my mom split up. But it wasn't but a couple of years after that she went missing.
Right. Yeah. Well, if you two got divorced in 96, yes, she went 99. Disappeared in 99. So, yes, it's not a long time. Okay. Okay, so I guess in general, between the both of you, you don't have a lot of, obviously you've talked about Marian, with her personality and when she drink too much, but with Will, it sounds to me, once again, my impression, a little more laid back, a little bit.
That is correct, yes. Quiet. Yeah, Will wasn't, I was around Will while he was drinking also, but he did not ever get irritated unless Marian pushed his button.
Okay.
He could, if Marian was at the golf course and he would come home to mow or something, and then he would sit out on our deck with us and have a couple of beers, Well, he never ever disrespected or said one unkind thing directed at that point about Marian. We didn't see that part of him at all. He was very laid back.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to this. We've talked about this par 3 golf course, and listeners should know I will be doing a video on YouTube to diagram where it was at the time. It is not there anymore, and an industrial park is there now, but I want everybody to see that. this par 3 golf course, I have to say that being that Will had, a job that took him out of town and everything, managing a golf course, owning it, must have been a lot of work.
They hired a lot of it to be done. I mean, Marian just was overseeing, like they had a professional lawn mowing or landscaping company that came and actually tended to the greens and the surroundings and fertilized it. And, they had a sprinkler system, of course, that did all the water, but it was not a constant, crowded golf course. Granbury is not very big, so we have like 4 or 5 golf courses here in our city, but it was a little golf course, a par 3, where you could teach people how to play golf, or if you just wanted to get a quick game in. So she had a lot of time on her hands.
Right. Okay. All right, so they had what you're saying is they had some employees who worked for them at the golf course?
Yes.
Right. Yes. And maybe I should explain this. A par 3 golf course is not your regular kind of golf course, 18 holes, several, maybe, 7,000 yards or something like this. This is just par 3, very, very short distance from tee to green, maybe even just 100 yards or something like that.
That is correct.
All right.
That is correct.
Okay. So people maybe need to understand this because obviously a big regulation think golf course takes many, many people to manage, whereas something like that, a lot less, fewer people are needed. And the way you remember it, they owned this golf course before they moved in next to you, Sherry?
He was building it.
Oh, okay.
Will actually drew the plans. He got with some professional golf courses themselves and did all the drawings, the calculations. He did it all, and then he hired it out to be built. So he laid it all out himself. He knew exactly everything that needed to be done, the distance between, where they would go straight, turn, come back, all of that.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to this. And I realize you're just giving your impressions. Obviously, you were not there when seeing this going on. But we need to talk about this affair that I think is the accounts of Marian's disappearance. I think this is something that's already out there, so we're not necessarily revealing new information. But I really do want to hear it from both of your points of view. When did you two find out that Will was having an affair with somebody else, a coworker, behind Marian's back? When did you find out?
Oh, I don't honestly know the year, it was the year that she went missing. But she actually told me.
She did.
Yes.
Okay.
She just came and said that she was very unhappy. Of course, when she said that she had caught Will in having an affair, and I was shocked, very shocked. And she said that she had found that he had been talking to a girl that he worked with on the cell phone, and she had told me it was through finding it on her cell phone billing that she had located this number, and it was a constant number. And then she found hotel charges on a credit card bill, and that's when she started investigating sooner. And that's how she found out.
What would you say her reaction was to this? Surprised, disgusted? What do you remember? I realize this is 21 years ago, but how do you remember it?
I honestly don't think she was surprised. I think she was hurt. And she was mad that it was happening because of what he had put her through with keeping everything going and him just racing all over the United States on quote-unquote jobs, and she didn't know really and truly if he had gone out of town on a job or if he was using that as a cover-up to go meet the girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
No, it just was a situation that she really didn't know what was happening. She actually believed in him, I think.
Okay.
You know, they had 2 children.
Right. Did it surprise you when she told you that? Did it surprise you that he was having an affair? Once again, just the way you remember him and everything?
Yes. I was shocked.
Okay.
I was shocked because Marian, honestly, she was just not really prepared to have children, and I do believe Will was the instigation behind going ahead and having the children. He wanted children, and I think once she had the children and once he started traveling, I think that and all of this started going down. I think it just hurt her to know that he wanted this family, and then he turned around and walked off and left it.
Okay. Now, when she brought this up, did she just kind of bring it up like she came over, you two were talking in the yard, and she goes, "Oh, yeah, I found out Bill's having an affair." Is that kind of how it went?
Honestly, I think that we were sitting out on the back watching the kids play, and she said, "You're never going to believe this." And I didn't believe it. I was shocked.
Okay.
So it was just that it wasn't a matter. She would come over almost every day because I was always outside with my kids playing, or they were playing, and when they would see us, her little 2 girls would come over, and then Marian would come over also, so it was us watching our kids together.
Yeah.
And that's how, it's just all in a conversation, not that she actually made a special trip.
Okay. All right, let's move on to this, because this is something, and the listeners should know, and I've already stated this before the interview started, but I'm going to state it again, is that you two, Sherry and Kelly, are appearing kind of at the behest of Marian's family. I have spoken to Marian's sister-in-law, which would be Marian's brother's wife, a few times. Her name is Barbara, and she was the one who said that you two should do this interview, because I think even all these years later, it's very emotional for Marian's family to talk about all of this. So that's why you two are appearing on the program. But in some of the paperwork that Barbara sent me, and then I sent some of it to you, I know that you saw in there that a customer at the golf course had stated that Marian was still talking about this affair, I guess a few months later, and said to the point that she was talking about killing this mistress or her husband because of this affair. Did she ever say anything like that to you? Kelly, do you ever remember anything like that? I know you were a little girl, but do either of you ever remember her getting so upset about it that she said something like that?
No, I didn't even know about it until I was probably 17, old enough for my mom to tell me that Will had an affair. I had no idea.
Okay. And what about you, Sherry? Did you being that she brought it up to you voluntarily after she told you, was there ever a time, if she had a couple in her, that she thought, I'm thinking about, I'd really like to do something to Will? Anything ever that come out? I'm just going by what a statement, I guess, that is believed that she made to a customer not long before she disappeared.
She never made that statement to me. No.
Okay.
Never.
All right, and the listeners should know that the statement was allegedly made on September 18th, 1999, which is coincidentally the day of or the day before Marian went disappearing. So let's move up to that day. What do we know about September 18th, 1999? The official story is that Marian, Will, and the kids went camping. Maybe I should ask you this. Was Marian the type of person to go camping? Do you ever remember the family going camping, in the years or months before this camping trip?
Nope. Never went camping. I never even saw that they had a tent. Nothing. That was not something that they did. And never had talked about ever camping before.
Okay. So what is the official story? Let's just take it from September 18th, 1999 into the 19th. What does Will say happened both the 18th into the 19th?
He had different stories.
Well, what's the official story? about them going. We'll just keep to the official story for now, which people would find in any particular article.
Okay. They went camping, supposedly down at the Granbury Dam, and there is a park there at the dam where you can camp overnight. And there is a beach where the kids can swim during the day. And the story was that they went camping and they got upset with each other later in the evening. And when the kids went to bed, she was there. When the kids woke up, she was gone, and they were told that their mom wasn't coming back.
So that's what you remember. So that's what you remember at the time.
That's correct. That's what I was told, because that's the story Will told one of the customers at the golf course, and the customer he actually told that back to me.
Right. Okay. Because as we will eventually talk about, then Will changed his story somewhere down the road, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Several times.
All right. When did you hear about Marian going missing? Was it the next day? Was it a couple days after that? Or did you just kind of feel something because you hadn't seen her at the house? How do you remember it?
Yeah, it was about 2 days later. I didn't see her. I didn't see her van. So I made a trip up to the, and now mind you, my kids are in daycare at this time, so I was by myself. I made a trip up to the golf course where she worked every day. Her van was there, and it was parked like she had turned quickly into the parking area where there was a load of sand or dirt.
Mm-hmm.
And the driver's side tire was up on the side of that mound of dirt at an angle, like it was a hurried job of, instead of a straight parking, it was like swing in and just parking. I did get out of the car and I went over. Will was there. His truck was there. And so I got out and I looked into the windows of the van, and I saw her sunglasses were there and her Dr. Pepper can was in the cup holder. And I knew something was wrong because, first of all, Marian would not have gone anywhere without sunglasses. She either had them on her face or she had them on her head. And with her sunglasses, and her purse was there also. And the Dr. Pepper, she always, she didn't have a beer with Dr. Pepper. So I knew that, well, that's not right. And where is she? So I went on around to the office because that's all there was at this little par 3 golf course. Was a little house. And so I went in and I was talking to Will and I said, where is she? And at that point he said, well, nobody knows. We went camping and I said, well, I had heard you had gone camping. And he said, well, she's with friends. Friends came and picked her up and she's with friends.
That's what Will told you. And so we'll just, if I could just jump in here for a second, Sherry. So you're saying a couple days after, let's just say it's September 21st. I'm not asking you for a specific day, but let's just say September 21st. You think something's going on. You go to the golf course. You encounter Will, and he says that she went with friends. She left with friends.
That is correct, yes.
And when he said that, did you interpret that to mean that she left with friends from the campsite, or that she left with friends from the golf course?
I honestly became suspicious because Marian had no friends but us.
Oh, I see. Okay, so you weren't. That wasn't even.
I mean, her friends.
Please.
Let's rephrase. Her friends. All of her friends were from California, so it's not she didn't have these local friends, but she just always hung out with us.
Okay, so
her friends are in California, and I knew that they did not come from California to go pick Marian up and go somewhere. Marian told me everything.
All right, so I guess what you're saying here is it wasn't the fact you weren't concerned about where she left from. You were just saying, well, it just no matter where she got picked up from. It just didn't seem reasonable to you that any friends took her anywhere.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right, and did you say anything to Will when he said that? Did you like I wouldn't say argue with him, but did you push back a little bit and saying, well, Will, that doesn't sound right?
I don't honestly remember saying anything. I probably just turned around and looked at him and went, yeah, right.
Okay.
Because, I mean, that was just the type of conversation that I would have with Will. I mean, we were good friends and everything, so I just would probably turn around and say, yeah, right, and I'd walk off.
Okay. And in a way, did it almost seem, I mean, you said you were suspicious, but on the other hand, you knew that Will was cheating on her. Did you maybe think that she just took off because she knew Will was cheating on her, so I'm out of here? She said, I'm out of here?
No, I would have never thought that, no.
No. Okay.
I would have thought Marian, because when Marian was not drinking, she was in her right mind. She was smart. I mean, she was a graduate from one of the colleges in California, either UCLA or I'm thinking, I can't remember honestly but she was smart, very smart lady. And Marian had two small children.
Right.
She would have never left those children. She would have never walked off without taking them. It just didn't seem right to me. And so I know that I went back home. And then the gentleman that she had actually reported her missing, he's the one that I started talking to.
Okay, and thank you for setting that up. That and I need to get Kelly back in on this conversation. When this was going on, Kelly, at 9 years old, did you have any suspicion yourself, once again as a 9-year-old, that something wasn't right? What did you see her daughters? Did the daughters say anything to you about their mother being gone? Anything like that when you saw them?
I remember being in daycare and the teachers, or there was rumor going around that one of the teachers had asked Will where she went, and he said that what was it? 2 men picked her up in a white truck. But after Marian went missing, he pretty much cut off contact between the girls and us.
Is that right?
So no, I don't remember them saying, "Oh, Mommy went missing." What I remember is not seeing them for 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden they're gone. They moved.
All right. So what you're saying is you knew the daughters. Once again, I understand they were both younger than you are. You were, but after the way you remembered after the disappearance date, you really didn't have any interaction with Marian's daughters ever again.
Right.
Wow.
We would try to contact them after they moved, and he would change the number. Can I add something, Edward?
Please, absolutely.
Right, the first Thanksgiving that she was missing, I do remember Will had no idea where Tara was. I mean, he was at home and the golf course was closed. Everybody was having family Thanksgiving. My family was in my house having Thanksgiving dinner. And we looked up and little Tara was peeking through the back sliding glass door.
Oh, my.
And,
and
I went in and I went and opened the door. And I said, Tara, does your daddy know who you are? And she said, no. And she said, I'm hungry.
Oh,
and I said, well, you might need to go home and tell your daddy where you are and come back. And she said, no, I'm hungry. So I called Will, and I said, Tara's over here. And he said, oh, okay, that's fine. And she sat at the table with my family and had Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh, my
gosh. Made her a little fresh. But it just was hard out because that little child she really didn't know what was going on. Right, and I don't remember that.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes.
That is a sad story right there.
Yes, it is. And to back up, Kelly may not remember this, but I had both of my children in counseling for 6 months after Marian went missing.
Right. No, I didn't.
Because of their situation with me. They had to sleep with me. They held on to me. If I sat on the couch, they sat on the couch with me. And one day I just asked, and Kelly answered, because Riley was too little. But I said, Kelly, it's all okay. And she said, no, Mommy, what if you go to sleep and you don't come back?
Mm.
And I knew I had to get my kids some real serious counseling. And we all went because, I don't know. But anyway, I don't know if you
Okay, so what you're saying is Marian's disappearance played a big role in your family, too. It kind of spread over to your family, having, some, issues as well, at least with your children.
Yes, it did.
Wow.
It did.
Okay.
And we were affected for years.
21 years.
Well, it's still affecting my oldest one, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. There's just not any closure for any of us. We just don't know where she's at. And the sad thing about it is, if we had known sooner, maybe we could have done something. But
right. Let's move on to this. Thank you for that. That's unbelievable.
Yes.
I'm very sad with the daughter coming over there like that. Unbelievable. You've already mentioned his name, and I think that we can mention his full name because he is a good Samaritan, I guess you'd say, in this particular case, so we want to give him recognition. His name is, and I'm not even sure if he's still alive. I think he was very old at the time, so maybe 21 years later he might not even still be around. But his name was J.C. Rager, and when did you first meet him?
When Marian disappeared.
How did that come about?
He just called me. He got my number from Will. Because he would go up to, he's the one that reported Marian missing. And because Will never did. And then after a couple of weeks, JC, was just the same. He said, I just knew that this wasn't right. Marian would not leave without JC knowing where she was. JC was a customer of Marian's and played a lot of golf out there. He was older. He is deceased now. I would say probably back then he might have been in his mid-70s.
Wow.
So he was very much older, but he would visit because he enjoyed her company as much as she enjoyed his. When it was slow, he would sit up there for hours and visit with her. And he would go up every day to check to see if Marian was there. Will would say no, she was at home sick, or one story I think was that she's going to stay with her brothers and she won't be back for a while. But he's the one that got different stories, and he asked Will for my number, and I'm guessing that's how he got it. But somebody gave him my number, and he contacted me and he said, we need to get together because something isn't right. And I said, I fully understand. And so we started talking, and I got a lot of stories my information from him.
Okay, so this Good Samaritan knows Marian going to the golf course, becomes concerned when she isn't there for multiple days, and he gets the impression that Will's story that he's telling in running into Will there doesn't quite make sense. That's what JC...
Correct.
Okay. And are you surprised, I have to ask you this, are you surprised that Will just up and gave JC your phone number, given that JC was curious about what was going on? Is that a surprise to you?
No, because we live in a small town. He probably thought JC would get it one way or the other, and he also knew that JC knew that I was Marian's neighbor, and he knew that he would probably get through the De Cordova is a gated community, and he knew that he would get in to talk to me some way or the other. So it really doesn't surprise me if that's who gave it to JC. I really and truly don't know how JC got it.
Okay. It's just interesting. Do you think that when Will gave JC your number, did Will know that JC was calling you about being concerned that Will wasn't telling the truth? I mean, what do you think?
Oh, I know Will knew JC and I were talking because I would confront Will with it.
Okay.
I didn't have any. I wasn't scared of Will.
Mhm.
I mean, I just, if I saw him drive up, I would go and talk to him, and I would ask him, "Hey, where's Marian?" Or "Hey, what's the story this time?" And then I would tell him, "JC said this," or "JC said that," and Will would always just kind of blow it off, and he'd say, "Well, JC can say whatever he wants to, but he doesn't know, and you can listen to whatever you want to."
Okay.
So, I mean, it was, he just kind of blew it all. I'm talking of Will. Will just kind of, blew everything off.
And all right, so we have this J.C. Reger guy who's being amateur sleuth, talks to you, and how many times would you say that you spoke to him about Marian's disappearance? And when did he was the one who finally filed the police report? When was that done? Do you remember?
I don't remember when he filed. It was probably a couple of weeks after she went missing, because they would not let the Hood County Sheriff's Office because it's not actually a police department. We're not in the city, so we had to deal with the Sheriff's Department, and the Sheriff's Department would not take a statement from him because he was not an immediate family member.
Yeah.
And they. I really don't know what the law is, but she had to be missing for so many days before they would take a missing person report. So they just kept going back, and the way that they let him file it was like a day when it was legally okay to do it.
Okay.
for someone else to report her missing.
Now,
We'll never do.
Now I have to ask you. Now, being that I brought this up earlier, was J.C. Reger the customer that Marian told him the day before that she was thinking about killing Will because of his affair? Was that J.C. Reger, or was that somebody else?
No, that was J.C.
J.C. told you that.
Reger.
He told you that.
Yes. I don't. I mean,
Did he ever? I guess what I'm asking you is, did J.C. Reger, when you got to know him, ever say, I was talking to Marian a couple days before she disappeared, and she was really ticked off about Will cheating on her? Did you and he ever have that conversation?
Yes.
You did. Okay, that's all I'm asking. Thank you. All right. So we got these.
Sorry.
All right, it's all right. It's fine. So we have these conflicting stories. Originally, Will tells you that they woke up the next day and she was gone, and then you show up at the golf course and he says that she took off with friends, which you didn't believe. And her vehicle, they have two vehicles. Her van is at the golf course, which is weird, being that he said that she went missing, when they went camping. There just seems to be a lot of inconsistencies here, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And I'll go back. I know Kelly, of course, you're just a little girl at the time, so you weren't privy to a lot of this. Did you realize that something was going on as a 9-year-old? Something wasn't right. Not seeing Will and Marian's children, their daughters, because you were friends with them, but maybe getting a sense that the adults in your life, something was going on there.
Yes. Absolutely.
Even though I'm sure that your mother, Sherry, was not telling you things because these are adult things, you as a 9-year-old had a feeling that something was going on.
Right.
Okay. All right. All right. So we have the. Please.
I'm sorry. From the get-go, I knew she was gone.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a sense of, I guess, a feeling because I was so young.
All I'm asking you is you had even as a 9-year-old, you had a feeling something's going on here.
Correct.
All right. Okay. All right, and you've already told Sherry. You've already mentioned this dirt mound story that the van was parked there, and is that also something that J.C. Reger noticed?
Oh yeah. As a matter of fact, JC did tell me that Will had ordered dirt to be delivered like a couple of days before she went missing. And so it was dropped right there in the parking lot. The parking lot sat in the front by the street. You pulled into the parking lot, and then you went to the little house, and you paid your golf course fees or whatever, and then you went to the back of the little house where you paid, and that's where your golf number one fee was. So in that parking lot right there by the street was a mound of dirt. And JC told me that Will was redoing one of the tee boxes.
All right, and we'll get into that. So there was maybe coincidentally, maybe not coincidentally, there was some work going on at the golf course at the time of Marian's disappearance. Some type.
Yes, but it had just started 2 days before her disappearance. He did not have any work going on before then.
Okay. Was this a situation where JC was coming over to your house? You weren't talking on the phone, but he was actually coming over to your house and you were talking about this?
No, JC never was at my home. We were only at his home.
At his home. Okay, or over the phone.
All over the telephone, yes.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Okay. So we have this camping story, which, in your opinion, Marian was not a camper. She wasn't the outdoorsy type.
Well, they like to sit outside and watch us, but I don't remember them ever going camping. No.
Okay. All right, and this what's the name of this park? Is it a De Cordova Dam Park? Is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
All right, and that is
correct.
Yeah, that's about 13 miles away. Is that a popular area for people to go camping in the area of Granbury?
Yes, it's very popular, but it's not 13 miles away.
Oh, it's not. How far is it away?
Oh, I would say probably 5 or 6.
Oh, very close.
Yes.
All right.
Very close.
Okay, because I did a map for it just from the center of Granbury, and it said it was like 13 miles, I think.
Well, you might have done it from the center of Granbury, but De Cordova is on the Fort Worth side of Granbury.
Mm-hmm.
So where that development is and where that dam is before you actually get to the town of Granbury. So from where we lived, or actually from where he says they left from, which was the par 3 golf course, because they left on a Friday night after the golf course cleared. It's probably maybe 3 miles or 4 miles from there.
Oh, very close. All right, thank you for clarifying that. Thank you. And I will be diagramming that on the map on YouTube as well. All right, so we got this camping story. Then we got this other story about how she left with friends, etc. All right, so finally this report is finally done. This police report, they finally take, I guess, a combination of yourself and JC very seriously regarding Marian's disappearance. What did the police do? What do you remember?
Well, they interviewed everyone and just got our last days of seeing her, information. They hired a person that had cadaver dogs and took the dogs out.
Well, maybe let's do it this way first. So the police get involved, and the police, do they come and talk to you one-on-one or over the phone, or what did they do?
No, they talked to me over the phone. And that was it. They talked to J.C. Rager. J.C. Rager gave them my name as a neighbor.
Okay.
And then they came and interviewed with me and just basically wanted to know the prior events that went on. And I will say at this point that Marian had just remodeled her kitchen and living room and was expecting furniture within 2 days after her disappearance. She was waiting on new living room furniture to be delivered, and then she disappeared before the furniture ever came. So I knew that. I had told them that, she's remodeling and was doing all this home improvements, and basically that's all I could tell them at that point, because at that point I didn't know much.
So the police talked to you. Finally, this report is filed. And in the conversation that you had with the police, did you bring up to them that Will was cheating on Marian?
I really can't remember. I think they already knew the situation.
All right, maybe from JC.
Actually, I think they just asked me if I knew he was having an affair, or knew who I was having an affair with, and I did not.
Okay. And we do know the woman's name. She was a coworker, but of course we were not going to use her name, but I know who she is. We know who she is. But and we should tell the listeners she was married as well. But so you don't remember this conversation. You don't remember the topic of Will's affair coming up during the course of your conversation with police, not the first time or any time after that.
That is correct.
Okay.
They did not interview me on that because I didn't know, I did not know the involved party.
Okay. And so they talked to JC. I know you were not privy to that conversation, so we're not going to get into what you think he said. But they did talk to Will, and do you know anything about what came of that conversation? Did you, after Will spoke to the police, did you ever speak to Will? No? Okay. So I'm guessing it sounds to me like your relationship between you two kind of chilled off very quickly.
It did, and he made one phone call to me after that.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that, which is very interesting. Okay, so the police are getting involved. They're talking to you. They're talking to JC. They're talking to Will, of course. Maybe they even talked to some of the other workers at the golf course. Maybe they talked to some people in Marian's family. I'm sure they did, even though the family I don't think was around the area. So they're talking to a lot of people. And do you happen to know what story Will stuck to? We know that his story seemed to change from one point to the next. Vanished during camping, vanished from the golf course. Do you happen to know what story he stuck with the police?
That she went with friends, I do believe. And then another story, which was one that he tossed back and forth equally, was that she had her own boyfriend and she left with him in a white truck.
From the golf course?
Yes.
Okay. The way you know Marian, you saw her a lot. Would she have had any time in what you understand her schedule to be from day to day to have an affair with anybody?
No, she would not have.
You never saw any men coming over to the house while Will was gone?
No.
Okay.
And Marian, and to be quite honest with you, Marian didn't want another man after she dated Will, or after she married Will. I think he just had pushed her to the limit to where she would not remarry if they divorced.
Okay. Now, just in passing, earlier in this conversation, you said that the older daughter, and how old would she? Maybe Kelly can tell us this. How old would Marian and Will's oldest daughter have been at the time? Do you remember?
6.
How old?
6. I'm sorry. 6 years old.
6 years old. Okay. Did the police talk to her?
Yes, they did. I believe so. Yes, they did. I do know so. Yes.
Okay. And what did you already said this in passing, but let's just go over this again. What did this older daughter, who's only 6, we have to remember this, what did she say to the police, and how do you know she said this?
I know this through Belinda Rogers, who was the investigator on the case, or one of the investigators on the case, and she went with a CPS officer to the school, and they took Tara from the classroom and talked with her, and Tara told them that her daddy had said her mommy had left and she was not going to be living with them anymore.
Wow.
And that's the story Tara stuck with.
Okay. All right, let's move on to this. The police get involved, and they do a search of the golf course, just in case. And what do you know about those? There actually were 2 searches. What do you know about them?
I was there for the first search.
Yeah,
and
great.
They would only let us stand in the parking lot. We could not go back to. They dug up the green that Will was repairing, and it was the number 8 green. It was by a pond, and it was a shallow grave they found. Do you want me to go further?
So they did the search, and they had a dog there.
2 cadaver dogs, yes, and they took one out of the vehicle, and they went to the number 8 green, or they didn't go to the number 8. I'm sorry. They had the dog do his job, and it led them to the number 8 green, and he hit on it, and they took that dog back, put him back into the van or their Suburban, and they got another dog out, and they took the other dog, let the dog do his job, and it hit on number 8 green again, the same as the first one, and it started digging. I think it was the second dog that actually started digging, and then they took that dog back, and we watched them put him back up, and then I don't know what transpired after that. It was just a bunch of police officers and a lot going on with the detectives and Texas Rangers, and basically that's all that happened that day.
Okay. So that was I have this in my notes. That was October 13th, 1999. So 3 weeks about the time after she went missing. Then the next day, though, they went back out there, and you weren't there for this particular day?
They wouldn't let us. They said that if we went out there, we'd be standing in the parking lot. I chose not to stand in the parking lot because number 8 could not be seen.
Right. Okay. So what do you understand? What did you find out about what happened on October 14th, the next day?
They dug up number 8. There was a shallow grave there. The way they explained it to me was that it was body size, human body size, like 6 foot by, I don't know the width of it, but I know that it was large enough for a body to fit in, and there was a fresh dead dog found in it. So they stated that the reason the cadavers hit on it was because they can hit on an animal scent as well as a human scent.
So they dug this up near the 8th tee, and they didn't find a human, they found a dead dog. Did Will have an explanation for this?
He said he had buried the dog that like a day before or so because he found it out in the street.
So once again, I'm just don't want to do a little too much speculating here, but is he saying that he dug a hole just to bury this dog in it? Or do you think there was already a hole there and it was just convenient for him to put the dog in the hole? Do we even know?
I think number 1. I think he dug the hole to put something there, and he ended up putting the dog in there too. Okay.
All right. We're not going to get into any. We'll just say that. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I wonder what came first, the hole or the dog. Was it just convenient because he already had a hole there because he was doing something, landscaping or something, and he found his dog, felt bad for it, and buried it? Or did he find the dog first and then decide, okay, I'll dig this hole and bury a dog in it? We don't know.
I don't know personally, but I have been on golf courses, and they don't actually dig up a green. They just kind of turn the topsoil and resod it or redo them. And so a 6-foot hole is something that was out of the ordinary to me. That's my opinion. Okay.
Thank you. All right. And Will was there for this, and that's the explanation that he gave, that he found this dog. And I have it in my notes. I just need to find out how you knew about this, or somebody knew about this, that the police at that point were really trying to lean on Will, weren't they?
Yes.
All right. And
Yes,
and what did he say? And is this investigator telling you some of this? Sherry, did you find out about this later? How they were really, trying to lean on him, trying to get him to say that he did something to Marian?
yes. I mean, that's the understanding I've got.
Okay.
That they tried, but.
Okay. But we should state, though, despite these searches with the dogs and everything, nothing that could be connected to Marian was ever found on the golf course, to your knowledge.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. So these searches are done on October 13th and 14th, and nothing is found related to Marian. I know a lot of people are going to be suspicious about it, but for the record, nothing relating to her disappearance was found. But Will, at some point, and you maybe could put this in the timeline, was it before or after these searches were done on the golf course, Will called you, and why don't you explain what happened, Sherry?
Will called me, and he asked me if I could pick up his two kids, and I said, sure. Where were they? He said they were at daycare, and then he just broke down crying hysterically. And the type where you were trying to catch your breath. And I said, Will, what is wrong? And he said, my truck is broken down, and I'm needing someone to get to my kids. And I said, are you okay? And he said, there's just so much right now, I can't deal with it anymore. I don't know what I'm going to do. So just know that I'll try to be home, and if I make it home, fine. If I don't make it home, tell the girls that I love them.
Wow.
And hung up.
And do you remember, once again, when this was? Was this just a few days after Marian went missing, or was it a month later? Do you remember?
Oh, no, it was probably a month later.
A month later.
Yeah, maybe about maybe 3 weeks. I mean, it wasn't that long, but it wasn't immediately afterwards.
Okay. So did you do as he requested and went to the daycare and picked them up?
That was left on a recording.
Oh,
because I didn't use it in my phone, so that what I just spoke was with his phone call. He left that on a recording.
Okay.
And I turned around and I called him back. And that's when I asked, I'm sorry, the first time I talked to him, he left a message for me to pick up the girls. It was hysterical.
Okay.
The second time, when I called him, he was still hysterical, and he just told me that, tell the girls that I love them if I don't make it back home. And I did go pick them up from the church. They were at the Acton Methodist preschool daycare. And I did go pick them up, and I brought them home with me. And I tried to call him back numerous times, and he never answered. He just kept going to voicemail, and I became worried. And finally, about 9 o'clock that night, he showed up, and he was drunk. And I asked him if he wanted the kids to stay over because I had already put them to bed. They had already had baths and in bed. And he said, no, I'll take them home with me. So I let him take them home. I don't know if that was a good decision, but he was drunk, and I let him take them home.
Okay. So did he said that his truck broke down or something like that, and that was the reason he couldn't pick them up? That
is correct, yes.
All right. That was the story that he... All right. So, but you found out at some point in the future that was a lie. How did you find that out?
I didn't find that out. I picked him up, and I didn't know it was a lie.
What Sherry did not know, and this is a piece of information that was given to me by Marian's family, and once again, they did not want to appear on the program. Once again, a little emotional, and they knew that Sherry and Kelly have been very instrumental over the years in trying to figure out what happened to Marian. But in the notes that were sent to me, at some point after this phone call, the family found out, and I'm surprised that they never told you, Sherry, but it turns out that the police, of course, did know about Will's affair, and they went and talked to this woman who he was having the affair with, and she claims on that day that Will was calling Sherry, saying that his truck broke down, this, that, and the other thing, that she knew exactly where he was and his truck had not broken down. And I guess you could infer that she was with Will that day. And that's the reason that she knew where he was. It wasn't that his truck broke down and everything else. He was actually lying to Sherry. Is that the way you've seen the report now, Sherry? Is that how you think it comes across?
It is.
Okay.
Yes.
I guess what we can say from this is that even though Marian caught Will in this affair and ordered him to stop, it seems like he never did stop the affair. If his mistress knows what he was doing 3 weeks after Marian went missing, and this is like being October, and Marian caught Will cheating in June and ordered him to stop. I mean, this is 4 months later, and this woman still knows his whereabouts. I mean, that tells me something.
Exactly.
Yeah, it tells me something. Now, it should be known in talking to, what I could infer is that this woman, the mistress, does not know what happened to Marian. I don't think anybody has ever, even alluded to the idea or even thought of the idea that this mistress had anything to do with Marian's disappearance. I did not get that from anything that I've read or heard about this disappearance.
I think you're correct on that.
Yeah. Okay. And once again, I know the woman's name, etc., but I've not spoken to her. Does that surprise you? When you read that in the report, I guess that must have been quite a surprise to you 21 years later.
Very much so, yes.
All right. So
Very much so. And Edward, I will tell you that during all of this investigations, and we're talking about maybe even 3 to 4 years later, the Texas Rangers and the Hood County Sheriff's Office advised me, and probably it did the same to Barbara, the sister-in-law of Marian, not to talk about the case because it was still open for investigation.
Yeah.
So the report that that I received the other day was, there was a lot of it that I had not known about.
Okay. All right. And, well, it must have been startling to you, and I guess in a couple instances then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Let's move on to this. Now, speaking of the police, this phone call regarding Will, you said that you gave your phone to the police, and when you got the phone back, the message was deleted. Why don't you talk a little bit about that, being that you experienced that firsthand?
Yes. I gave my phone to the investigator that was doing the investigation, the primary investigator, and she took it as evidence, and it had the recording, the voicemail on it of Will crying and mumbling and acting obviously hysterical about me picking up the kids. It was on a message, and then that's what I gave to them, and when I got my phone back, it was deleted.
No explanation?
None.
Did you think that was suspicious?
Yes.
Okay.
But I had no control over it. I did ask about it.
Yeah.
And I did ask the investigator about it, and she just said, "Well, I don't know how it got erased." And of course, it's my word against theirs,
Right.
I'm on the losing end.
Okay. Well, a lot of my guests are, Sherry, so don't feel too alone regarding that. Okay. Let's move on to this. Did you know about this sheriff's comment that was made at the time regarding Marian still being alive somewhere?
Yes.
How did you find out about it, and why don't you talk about it?
I had a neighbor Marian was next door to me, and the other neighbor on the other side of Marian, Mr. Collinsworth, who is now deceased. He was a member of the men's club, or the men's Acton Methodist men's group, and there was a dinner Hardin, who was the sheriff at the time, was the speaker at the meeting, and when he made after his speech and everything, they closed his little presentation down and offered up like questions and answers and all whatever session. And one of the questions was what had been found out about Marian Hurley out of De Cordova, and that's when he made a statement that she was alive and well, and she was in a halfway house in Abilene. And Mr. Collinsworth came back to me and made a statement to me that, had you heard that? Did you know that she's been found? And I said, she hasn't been found. And, I mean, I really didn't know what to say because she hadn't been found. Her credit card, her driver's license, nothing, her debit card, nothing had been used. The investigation was still open. I called the family. The family had not heard she was alive and well. So, honestly, nobody, and Mr. Rager is deceased, Mr. Collinsworth is deceased, so nobody knows the truth on that. She was not in a halfway house in Abilene. I do not believe that.
So the sheriff of the department that was responsible to this day of investigating Marian's disappearance is just throwing this comment out a few months after at this dinner that, oh, yeah, Marian Hurley, she's still alive. She's just over in Abilene at some halfway house, getting sober or something like that.
That is correct. That's all we know of. And then again, I asked the investigator, and she said that she was not able to speak on that.
Okay. That is a strange one. I don't know if he was just drunk and saying that, or I know maybe some people were going to go to conspiracy land with that comment, but it's if nothing else, it's very irresponsible.
And yes, it was. And
do you know who Lisa Henley is?
I know Elisa by Marian's friend from, she was not from Texas. She was one of Marian's friends, maybe from California.
Okay.
But I don't know her last name.
Do you know anything about?
I did not.
Do you know anything about Will talking to this woman about how he wanted to hide a body? Had you ever heard that story before?
I just know what was told to me. And it wasn't told to me by Marian or Will. It was told to me from someone else.
Okay.
That, you want me to?
Please.
Okay, that Lisa had made a statement that they were sitting out on the back. Her and Will had just made a new patio, concrete patio, and they were sitting outside drinking and got drunk, and their discussion turned into, well, if I killed you, if you killed me, how would you dispose of the body? And they went into telling each other how they would dispose of a body.
Was this before or after Marian disappeared?
No, this is before.
Before. Wow.
Marian and Will talked about that out on Marian and Will's concrete patio. Well, then this conversation was had. Well, then she supposedly called her friend in wherever, Lisa, and told Lisa the conversation. But Lisa never did pursue anything because, you wouldn't think that anything would have happened. But I think Lisa's the one that ended up talking to the investigator on that.
All right.
I've only met Lisa one time, and that was probably 2 years before Marian disappeared. She came and visited Marian. Actually, she came and visited Marian after when Katie was born.
Okay.
So it was probably about 2 years before.
How did you find out about this story then?
Who told me? I think that the investigator told me. Asked me if I knew anything about it. No, didn't even know anything.
Okay. So the story is, at some point before Marian disappears, she and Will are on the back porch, get drunk. They start trading stories about how they get rid of each other, and then Marian goes missing. And Marian, before she went missing, told her friend Lisa, who then, once Marian went missing, Lisa told the police about this story.
Right.
Okay.
That's the best. That's the way I understood.
Okay, that's fine. And the investigator told you about it. Seems like the investigators told you a few things, which is nice. Now, Will and his daughters did not stick around too long in Granbury after this all happened. Why don't you explain, did you know that they were going to be moving, or did they just up and leave in the middle of the night? How do you remember it?
They up and left in the middle of the night. She went missing in September, I do believe, and then they moved. They were gone out of Granbury by February.
You didn't know that they were leaving? You didn't see them you didn't see Will packing up anything or anything like that?
No. Don't even know how they moved out. Never saw you all, nothing.
They were
go ahead.
They were there one day and gone the next.
Right.
Did you and Will have any interactions? And maybe I can ask Kelly this as well. In those months between September and February of 2000, did you have any interactions with Will? Running into him, cutting the grass, anything like that?
No. See, to me, being 9, I didn't realize it was 6 months later. I felt like they left immediately. So, yeah, contact must have been cut off as soon as she went missing, because I thought they moved 2 weeks later. I didn't feel like 6 months to me.
Wow.
Will cut off all communication of the kids and wouldn't let his kids play. He always had them at the golf course. I would ask if they could come and stay at the house. No, but he cut it all off when he knew that I was looking into more information.
Mm-hmm.
He stopped talking to me. He took the kids away from us. Even after they were gone, I still had his phone number. I tried to call him. He wouldn't let us talk to the girls. He wouldn't let my girls even talk to the girls. And then he changed his phone number, so there was no way to contact him.
Do you remember that, Kelly? Do you remember being able to see your friends out there next door and not being able to play with them? Do you remember that?
No.
Don't remember.
I don't ever remember seeing them. No.
Okay. After Marian disappeared, did you happen to see any women come over to Will's house?
The only person I ever saw over there was Bonita.
And that was somebody who worked at the golf course.
Yeah, she was a friend of theirs, and she worked when Marian didn't want to work.
Okay.
And she also, after Marian disappeared, she stayed up there with Will and helped him.
Okay.
She also was the one that cleaned out all of Marian's clothes. I guess the investigator told me, because I have not seen Bonita, so all of this is just hearsay, that Bonita had a garage sale and sold all of Marian's stuff in it.
Wow. All right, so they Will cleared out Marian's stuff, and allegedly Bonita sold it.
That is correct.
Okay. But you didn't see any women come over there, let's say his mistress or any new girlfriends, anything? Do you remember anything like that?
No, nothing.
Okay.
Did not see.
All right. Now let's move up. We're going to move up a few years to November 2006. And so, Kelly, I guess you would have been then 17. But do both of you remember the day that the police showed up to dig at the Hurley house?
Yes.
All right. Why don't you?
Yes.
Was that something that was a surprise to both of you, or did you know it was coming?
I knew it was coming. I don't know if Kelly knew it was coming or not, but
okay.
I knew it was coming because they had prepared us for it because we were the neighbors, and they were having to bring in equipment, because they were going to put all that concrete patio back in the back.
Yeah.
And so they came in through part of my yard, and then all of the news reporters were in my yard.
I bet you loved that.
Yeah, it was quite interesting. It was on television, and it was a pretty big thing.
Do you? So there were, I guess, there were new people living in the house at the time, and these new owners went along with it.
They weren't new owners. He still rented the house out.
Oh,
did
he?
The house.
He did, yes. Kelly. Thank you for clarifying that. So he moved out, but didn't sell the house. He continued to rent it.
Correct. Well, he could not sell the house until after she had been declared missing, and I think it was 6 or 7 years.
He doesn't own it anymore.
No, he had to stay. He sold it after his time was up, where he could file it for abandonment.
Right.
And she abandoned him because the house was in both of their names, as was the golf course.
Mm-hmm.
So he had to sit on the golf course and the house for whatever legal is here in the state, 6 or 7 years before he could sell it because of her abandonment.
Right.
Okay.
And I remember we went through a few different families that lived there, and I remember one of them told us that he had a closet in the garage that was locked. Like there was deadbolts on it, and he could not get in it.
Huh.
And he had came down and went and got all the stuff out of that closet. I can't remember when that was.
Okay.
I don't either.
All right, so this dig that was done at the house was done while Will still owned the property.
Correct.
Okay.
But he was not here.
Do you happen to know what brought on? I mean, this is 7 years later. Do you happen to know what brought on this digging at the house? New information? Had you heard there was new information or anything?
I don't know what actually brought it on, because somebody thought that it had been built after she disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't. It was built before she disappeared. But they asked me, and I told them, and they dug anyway.
All right, so this was something that was concrete on their property that was made part of a porch or something?
Yes, it was right outside their back sliding glass door. It was probably about a 10 by 10 little patio.
Okay.
That's where they sat out and discussed how they were going to get rid of the body.
Right, that's the area right there. Okay, thank you. All right, so Will moves out. He continues to rent the property. He takes his girls with him. They move, and we know where Will is now, but we're not going to get into that as far as he's not, and we'll just say he's not in Texas anymore and has not been in Texas for a while. But so new people now own the home. Are the new owners aware that a former resident there had disappeared?
I don't have any clue. I don't even know who lives there now. We don't live next door.
Oh, you don't live there anymore. Okay, well that would yeah.
Yeah, we've moved.
Okay, so you moved away as well.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. All right, so Will moved away. I think I will say that he is with a new woman, and she is quite a bit younger than he is, what I was being able to discover. I don't think he has any children with this woman, but and I think that they've been together for several years. Now, as far as Will's and Marian's daughters, over the years, have you been able to reconnect with them at all? Do they show any interest in trying to figure out what happened to Marian, and what happened regarding her disappearance? Do you know anything about that, either Kelly or Sherry? Do you know anything about that?
I friended Tara on my Facebook page, and she's the oldest daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And I never mentioned her mother to her at all. I just communicate with her with liking her school pictures, she was in college, liking her adventures, her trips, and things like that. Never other than just, small talk of, you look so pretty in the dress, and her comment back, thank you so much. Katie friended me. Katie doesn't remember much, I don't think. She was just little bitty.
Mm-hmm.
And I do know that after I had them on my Facebook page, both of my girls friended them. And now Kelly can speak.
Yes. I had them as friends on Facebook for probably 10 years.
Okay.
And I just liked their pictures, and then recently I sent her a message reaching out to her, asking how she was doing, and I probably didn't go about it the right way, but I asked her what she thought about her mom, and I sent her a link to, I can't remember, one of the stories I had shared of hers, and I immediately got blocked.
Wow.
So, Katie, I still have it as a friend on Facebook, but we have not exchanged any words.
When was
blocked me.
Yeah, Kelly, when was that? How recently was that you got blocked by her?
Within the last 6 months.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
And you heard me say Kara blocked me too, right?
Yeah.
And Katie has not. She's still on that Facebook page. But I don't, like I said, converse with her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a tough situation. If you've listened to any of Unfound's disappearances, maybe some recent ones, we covered a disappearance within the last month. Similar circumstances where a woman goes missing, husband tells conflicting stories, but this is a much newer disappearance, just from 2019, and the couple's daughter is, in college. And in fact, I interviewed her for that episode. And it's certainly a different kind of situation than what we've talked about here, where, young girls, they're brought up with their dad, and who knows what they've been told over the years, who knows what they've looked up. And given that they've become young women, it very well may be that Will did a fantastic job of parenting. We have to figure that in there, and I hope that their two daughters are doing very well with their lives. So, bringing something up about their mother going missing, I'm not saying I understand getting blocked, but I can understand why they might be a little defensive.
Right, absolutely.
So, especially given the circumstances and the way everybody understands what happened to this disappearance. Once again, we only cover the facts here, and the fact is, from different people, between you two, JC, the police, it does seem that Will's story varied from person to person. That is a perception. Okay. So no contact with the daughters, given that they were, 6 years old and 3 years old? Is that right at the time?
6 and 2?
Yeah, probably 5 and
5 and 2, something like that. So they're in their mid-20s. Yeah. Okay.
It was sad.
Now, I know you two have kept in contact with Marian's siblings over the years, and I know in just talking to Barbara, the sister-in-law, that they really do appreciate the interest that you two have continued to show in trying to figure out what happened to Marian over all of these years. What has your interaction been like with Marian's family over the last 20 years? I mean, how often do you talk with them? Have you seen them? Anything like that?
They came down during the investigation, and we spent every night for a week together talking. And then after that, probably talked about once or twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I might talk to Barb. I guess I talk to her maybe once a year now that it's drugged this far out. There's just not really anything common. I know that she contacted me when the brothers died. I think they've lost 2 brothers now. So she did let me know about their death and let me know that her and her husband are doing great. But, that's just about it. We don't see them. They live in Montana.
Okay. All right. Because they were the ones who, once again, Barbara was the one that suggested I talk to you two regarding Marian's disappearance. And I think that you two have done a really good job representing Marian's family and Marian herself and trying to get the word out about Marian's disappearance, everything that went on 21 years ago. It's a very older disappearance. It's older than the average age of a disappearance that we cover on the program. So I appreciate you, both of you, trying to recollect what you remember from back at that time. Is there a website or a Facebook page set up for Marian's disappearance?
No, I've talked. Funny you say that or ask. I talk about it, but I just don't know if I could keep up with it. I'm trying to keep up with getting her story out as much as I can, and I'm already having a hard time doing that with all the kids, as you know.
Right, right.
I would love to get one started, but I would need help.
Okay.
And I know.
I didn't know that you wanted to do that.
I'm a little more computer Facebook savvy than Mom is, so I'd probably be the one that would have to do it. It's just It's hard to keep up with everything.
Can you help, Edward?
We could. We certainly can, and we've done that in the past. In fact, I'm sure that once this episode comes out, being that you're saying this, I'm hoping that someone in the group will step up, to assist. All right, so I will, once this episode comes out, I will make sure everybody understands that you're looking for some help in setting up a Facebook page for Marian's disappearance. We can surely make that happen.
Oh my gosh, that'd be great.
We've done that, I don't know how many times, maybe at least 5 or 6 in the last 4 years. So, yes, a lot of times listeners step up and help guests. So we could surely do that this time. Any final words before we complete this interview, Sherry and Kelly?
I just want to thank you so much for taking your time and your patience with us, and just the consideration and the compassion that you have to help, and put yourself out there to try to bring some closures to those I'm 63, but I have 2 daughters that were highly affected by this, and I really do appreciate you at least trying to bring some sanity back into the situation. And you're just inspired us so much.
Well, I appreciate that. You're very kind. Thank you. Thank you. And I hope we can continue to keep in contact with each other. I know we are, of course, friends on Facebook, so you know where to find me, and I'm sure we'll be talking again often. And I hope we can help. Continue to help in some way.
Probably on Friday when that episode comes out.
Okay. All right, and everybody should understand we did this interview on November 11th, 2020. Just so the listeners know, if they listen to it way down the road, they can understand when this episode, the interview was done and when the episode came out. So, okay. Well, I appreciate you both being on this episode of Unfound.
Thank you so much for having us.
You're welcome.
And that was my interview with Sherry Barron and Kelly McCampbell, former neighbors of Marian Hurley. They appeared with the permission of Marian's family. I thank them for joining me and all of you on the program. You can find a supplemental video on YouTube regarding Marian's disappearance. I show you the golf course as it used to be and how it is now an industrial park. Please check it out on the Unfound Podcast Channel. I'm sure many of you are thinking of Angela Green's disappearance, a case we covered just a few weeks ago, while listening to my talk with Sherry and Kelly. Both hers and Marian's are situations where wives went missing, and their husbands' stories to this day don't make a lot of sense. Of course, the big difference is Angela's just happened a year ago, while Marian's is now over 20 years old. Overall, I think that has to be the main takeaway from Marian's. We cannot allow these types of cases to go this long without being solved. You don't believe Will's story. I don't believe Will's story. And barring her case being solved tomorrow, nobody else somewhere down the road, a month, a year, a decade, is going to believe Will's story either. Yet, Because we allow these guys to tell flimsy stories and get away with them, that in turn only causes more flimsy stories to be told in the future when other wives go missing. How do we stop it? Really, I think the first law enforcement officer on the scene has to have a little more Columbo in him or her, and not so much Barney Fife. Being a cynic is always healthy in these situations, and that has to start at the first encounter, not the second or the third. From the very first interaction with a husband who claims his wife went missing, doubt should be in an investigator's mind. Always. If not, these thin stories husbands tell and get away with it will continue to be par for the course. I'll leave the theorizing up to you. And that's the program. If you found it informative, please go to the app that you use to listen to Unfound and give this podcast a nice review. I thank you for listening. I'm Ed Densel, and you've been listening to Unfound.